Let's bring in the panel now, and I'm joined by Spectator Australia columnist Rebecca Weisser and the editor-in-chief, former editor-in-chief of The Australian, now media columnist Chris Mitchell. Thanks both for joining us. I want to talk about borders and the way this issue plays out, and both of you will be well aware about how the media is often parochial, while some other media likes to take a national view. Let's first off have a look at a national view here. Here's Sam Armitage, I suppose, making the national case on 7 Sunrise.
Anastasia Palaszczuk won't come on the show. My blood's boiling because of a lot of things she's done lately. There was a Ballina mother who lost a baby because she couldn't get to a Queensland hospital over the weekend. You guys have now got no supermarket, no butcher, no food, basically.
That's right.
She won't come on the show. I'm happy to have it out with her. I'm fed up with what's going on in New South Wales.
So she wants to have the argument with Anastasia Palaszczuk. Then for an example of the parochial, Rebecca, we could go over to Western Australia and have a look at the front page yesterday with a poll showing that the Premier's got support of 91% of the electorate in the West for his closed borders. And the front page there today shows him having a victory over Scott Morrison on these issues. Rebecca, this is going to play out today and in days and weeks to come. Who's right, those backing the state parochial interests or those who want borders opened up for the good of the nation?
Well, I think from the media point of view, it's good, obviously, that people can have access to commentary and reporting that comes both at the national level and at the state level. I think ultimately on the issue of substance, it is simply untenable to propose that you keep a state shut down forever. Or at least until a vaccine possibly arrives, whenever that might be, particularly when it's the federal government that's paying for a lot of the costs involved. So it's a complex issue. From the media point of view, it's understandable, I guess, and it's good to get both perspectives. But really, on the substance, for my take, we've got to open up. And there are a lot of ways to do that and actually have less deaths. You know, Chris, you, I think, were one of the first at Sky to report on ivermectin. So we've got plenty of treatment if people actually want to use it, and we can use that to open up the economy and save lives at the same time.
Chris Mitchell, as a former editor-in-chief of The Australian, you have a great overview of this dynamic because you've always run a paper there. It's looking at the national issues, the national interest, the national debate, and you must have been acutely aware all the while that so much of the media is state-based and pushes on those parochial pride issues, and we're seeing that play out in the border debate.
Yeah, and I think particularly in a state like Queensland, people often see the national government as far away. You know, often local leaders like Peter Beattie might be more popular and more well-known than the Prime Minister. But, Chris, I think there was a fantastic example of this morning on Radio National. So somebody I wouldn't have expected asked the right question of Kerry Butler, the Brisbane MP from the Labor Party. She was asked why would she have to go into 2 weeks quarantine returning from this week's sittings in Canberra when there were 0 cases in Canberra but 30 cases in her hometown of Brisbane. Now, she refused to criticise the lockdown, but it was a terrific question and it's the right question.
Yeah, it's spot on, but are the state-based media, Chris, playing the same game as the Premiers, I suppose? It is the populist line with their audiences to keep the borders shut, protect their own state, and that is essentially is seen as being on side with their audiences.
I think that's exactly right. I was at a funeral in Brisbane during the small period when it wasn't locked down, and a very senior person inside the Labor Party talked to me about their private polling on the lockdown, and I was pretty convinced then that the borders would be locked again shortly after that. So I think probably the state premiers are reading the local parochialism well, and I think for this to be addressed, either the Prime Minister needs to stop subsidising these decisions by premiers via JobKeeper, or the tourism industry and others who are being adversely affected need to campaign even harder.